Craig here from fixitfallows once more with the Giant Anthem. Yeah, this is my regular ride. It gets a bit of use. We changed the cassette on it, didn't we? You saw that video. Well, now today I think the rear brake needs a bit of attention because the brake lever pretty much goes all the way to the handlebar, to the grip.
Here we are at the rear caliper, and you can see how close the oil bleed nipple is to both the pads and also to the disc. And in order to ensure that you do not get any oil from that bleed nipple onto the surface of the pads, which will pretty much ruin them, and also onto the surface of the disc, which is very difficult to clean, the easiest thing to do is to remove both the pads and the rear wheel whilst doing a bleed. So in order to remove the pads, we need to remove this split pin, so we just use a pair of pliers to bend the far end straight, and then we'll just pull the pin out like so, and then we'll pull out the pad carrier, which also acts as a spring, and then we should just be able to lift out the pad. So out comes the first one like that. I'll just reach down. Now this second one's just slipped down a bit, so I'll just use a pair of long nose pliers to fish that one out. There we are, so both pads are out. There's the pad carrier, and there's the split pin. And you know, they're a bit worn. They're not absolutely worn to limit. Some people might to replace them now. Personally, I'll get a bit more life out of those yet. Okay, so if you're going to be doing any sort of maintenance on your bike that's got hydraulic brakes, you need these two items. This one here is a block you put in the calipers when you remove the brake pads and want to do a bleed on the system. This fits in and is exactly the right width apart as your brake pads would be and the disc, ensuring that the pistons do not close too tightly when you're doing your bleed. This one here is for when you've removed your wheel and doing some sort of maintenance work on your bike. Having removed the wheel, the disc is no longer in between the brake pads. This slides in between the brake pads and means that if you inadvertently pull a brake lever, which you undoubtedly will at some point during the service, the pads won't close together too far. Here you can see I've slid the block up into the caliper. It actually goes up from the underside as if the disc was entering the caliper. Goes in from that side, and then you slide the locking pin through, holding the yellow block in place. Now if the brake levers are pulled, the pistons will squeeze onto this block, but they won't go any further than that, meaning that they are set at their correct distance apart. With the back wheel removed, this is one of those jobs that is much easier to do in the bike stand. A brake bleed is not very easy to do whilst the bike is upside down on the saddle and the handlebars, and also it is best to try and angle the bike in this fashion with the front wheel sort of raised so as to encourage any air that may be in the system down in the caliper area to rise upward through the pipework up towards the brake lever. Okay, so when you're doing the bleed, you want to set your brake lever as level to horizontal as possible. If that requires loosening the lever and temporarily setting it at a different angle, then so be it, because we're going to be taking this little nipple off. That gives us access to the oil reservoir on top of the brake lever. So you want to get it set as level as possible so that oil doesn't flow out either side. One little tip for you, so as not to damage this screw head here, take a pin, poke it in there. You'll be surprised the amount of mud that's got into there. And when you think about the amount of mud that splatters over your handlebars, you wipe it clean, but you never think of cleaning in there. What happens is mud builds up in there, and your Allen key doesn't insert far enough. When it's not inserted far enough, that's when you start turning the head. So take a pin, wiggle it around, blow it out a few times before you insert your Allen key. This is a 3mm Allen key,
hex head bolt here, and so we can undo that like so. There will be a little rubber washer on the bottom of this screw, which you want to make sure comes out along with it. You can just see it there. It's quite easy to lose, and then you can see down inside there.
So here we have the oil filler reservoir that we will screw onto the lever. This is a non-Shimano item in the yellow. The Shimano one's actually like an opaquish white. At the bottom there is a screw threaded bit with a rubber washer on, exactly the same as the screw we just took out the lever, and that's where it's going to go. So we're going to attempt to screw it in there. Now it's made of plastic, so it's very easy to cross thread, so we'll just let it gently seat and then just gently turn it to make sure we're not cross threading it in, and then screw it down and let the rubber seal do its thing. Inside there's a little plunger. More of that in a minute. At the moment we'll leave it out because we need to fill this reservoir with some mineral oil.
Okay, here we have a bottle of mineral oil. Shimano systems all use mineral oil. Other brands might use some form of DOT based brake fluid, much the same as you might get in a car. So it is important to check what brake fluid your system uses. Personally, I like to use systems with mineral oil because it's a lot easier to manage, it's less corrosive, and DOT brake fluid actually absorbs water from the atmosphere. So once a bottle is opened, it's pretty much got to be used, because it will then continuously look to absorb moisture from the atmosphere, whereas mineral oil does not do that, contrary to belief. So it is much more usable. Okay, at this point what we want to do is pour some oil into this reservoir, and from this point on we want to make sure there's oil, always oil in here. So we'll pour some in. Okay, pour some in. I've filled it about halfway. That's it. So we poured it in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the brake lever a bit of a flick. And I'm looking down in there to see whether any air bubbles come out. Now one did. A few are coming out. So that means as we're doing this, it's drawing oil in and then expelling any air that was in this pipe or in this lever. I'm going to keep flicking and the air keeps coming out. So this system was definitely low on oil. So we're going to keep flicking like so until no more air comes out. Now a few more little bubbles come in, so we'll keep doing it. Keep doing it until such time as you're satisfied that no more air is coming. Okay, it can also help to give the cables a bit of a tap. Give them a tap. Try and dislodge any air that might be in them. And then go back to the lever, give it a flick. Okay, ensuring that a good amount of oil remains in this little basket. Because if it drops down too low, all you're going to do then is introduce more air back into the system. So from this end, it doesn't look like any more air is going to come. Okay, we're now down at the brake caliper end of the system. I've placed a 7mm spanner on the bleed nipple there. I'm using the fully round end so that it sits on there and stays there, so I'm not scrabbling around for the spanner when I need it. Ensured that there is a nice supply of oil up in that yellow basket reservoir up on the lever. Because what we're going to do at this point is we're going to attach this empty syringe to this bleed nipple. We're then going to open the bleed valve and I'm going to draw some oil down through the system. What it will do, it will suck any oil down through here and it will be replaced with the oil that's up in that reservoir. And whilst doing this, it's always just to keep checking that there's oil up there in that reservoir and that we're not introducing new air into the system. So we'll place the bleed nipple on like so, and then we'll rotate the bleed nipple like so, and you can see oil starting to weep through, and then we pull the syringe like so, and we just start drawing out the fluid. There's actually quite a bit of air in there, so there's air in the caliper that this is drawing out, and also the oil's a little bit murkier than the new fresh stuff. And we're pulling and we're pulling, and there we go, we've pulled some through, and now what we'll do is we'll close that shut, take it off with a tissue. There we go. So that's the amount we've pulled through. We'll just check upstairs at the top, and there's still plenty of oil in there, which will give that a blip, and that's much better. Put that down, tighten that up, wipe it off. Make sure it's done up nice and tight. It is. Put the rubber bung back over. There we are. And then we'll have a look up here at the lever. And you can see that there's still plenty of oil in there. We didn't draw too much in. I'll give the lever a bit of a flick. There's no more air bubbles coming out. And there is a nice bit of resistance on that lever. It doesn't go back to the handlebars like it was doing so previously. All we now need to do is place the bung back in here, which we'll do now. There we go, we place the bung down in there, like so. So that will enable us to unscrew this without all of the oil, remaining oil, washing out the bottom. The other option you've got is to use a syringe and draw the oil out if you want to really make sure that you don't lose any of that oil all over your cockpit area. So remember, we had this syringe of old used oil that we drew out of the caliper, and we need to get rid of that. Now you don't want to squirt that back into the bottle of fresh oil, so what I do is I use a bottle of milk like that I've marked up, and then I just squirt that into there like so. I then detach the tube from the syringe and tap all the remaining stuff out. So, maybe even give it a bit of a blow. There we go, like that. And now that's good enough to use again for your next brake bleed. I'm going to draw out the remains of the oil out of here, ensuring the bung's in, because I don't want to suck it out actually of the brake system. So the bung's in, and then I'll draw out most of the oil from there, like so, which I can then squirt this back in to my fresh bottle, because that stuff hasn't been used. Okay. Put that down on the side, and then using a tissue, placing it underneath there, I can gently unscrew the service reservoir like that. Place that on the side, and then I can replace screw back into the lever, ensuring that the rubber washer is on there. Well, there you have it. There was a bleed on the rear brake of my Giant. It's all working nice and smoothly now. Good pressure. Not too difficult. Can be a bit messy, but if you take your time, you get on all right. So thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up and possibly subscribe. See you in my next video.